Hi. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Melody. This is Court Johnson with Health Rising, and you are our first Zoom interview, recovery story interview on Health Rising. There may be some glitches. I'm very new to Zoom, um, but thank you for being first. Um, and so you have a very interesting story. And if you could, that it's just ups and downs and all sorts of stuff. If you could just give us a general overview of how, maybe a bit about your health before ME/CFS and how you kind of got into the ME/CFS, long COVID space. And yeah, that would be great. That would be great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel honored to be your first on Zoom. So, our health recovery story on Zoom. So, I was a physician assistant for since the 90s, and I was practicing in every capacity from family practice to urgent care to
Oh,
um, pediatrics. I did some gastroenterology. I just did anything and everything. And I noticed, then my husband approached me and said that they would like me to consider running for office. And I said, "You run for office. I don't like politics." And he goes, "No, but people don't like me. They like you." So we joked about it. And I got elected to the school board, long story short, in 2014. Tremendous stress. This county is a half a million people. I'm in Florida,
Florida.
and half
Mhm.
a million people, and I had 67 schools. I had over 8,000 employees, $1 billion budget, along with four other people to manage. So just tremendous stress. And I noticed that the more stressed I got, the worse I felt. And slowly, then we had adopted three children. So my youngest had a growth spurt and suddenly had scoliosis.
Oh,
So I
oh,
diagnosed it, and then I got him to the specialist, and we kind of held it back 2 years until he had a big growth spurt. And
oh
then his
boy.
curve went from, I think, 40 degrees to 60 some degrees. So they told us we had to operate. And the
Can I
day
ask you
they're,
something?
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
because this is interesting. So what is the scoliosis a function? Does that have anything to do with connective tissue breakdown? That the connective tissues are not? I really don't know, but
It's
we would just
actually
do
all
something on
bone.
connective tissues.
It's
Um,
all bone,
yeah.
but because the bone twists so graphically, it hurts the tissue
Okay.
dramatically. So between the two, but it is the bone growing at a different shape.
Oh,
There's a gentle shape, and his
right.
was this massive curve. So he looked like he had a wing, if you will.
Oh,
That neck shoulder blade went way out, and so they're telling
gee.
us the good, bad, and ugly. And so just the stress is just compounding. So all of a sudden, I'm working, I don't feel great, I'm having these thumping headaches. So I finally wised up, checked my blood pressure, and it was 216 over 140. It was crazy.
Oh,
It would have
wow.
been a hypertensive crisis if I would have went to the hospital. But being the caretaker provider, I decided to treat myself.
Oh
Got
boy.
my blood pressure down.
Uh-huh.
And then I talked to another doctor friend, not the one I was working for, but another one, and they said, "Oh, there's this tumor that can cause a sudden spike in blood pressure." And I thought, "Oh, crap." And I went and finally confessed everything, got it all checked out. I did not have a tumor. I just had tremendous stress and high blood pressure suddenly. Well, then it progressed to once you go once, they just kind of suck you in for all these diagnoses.
Yes,
So it
yes.
just kept slowly adding. Well, then about 4 years later, I notice my hands hurt all the time. I've had a bad back my whole life, not my whole life, but my whole adult life. And I just figured my weight, my inheritance, my everything, just kind of gave me, plus lifting 200-pound people. because I was a
Oh,
certified nurse at
okay.
one point in a nursing home. So you're just doing lots of stuff with your back. So I just gave it all that. But I noticed, I mean, an ankle, a hand, a wrist, just weird things. You know, I suddenly couldn't open jars. I couldn't. So then I know what to order. So I ordered my lab work, and it showed all of a sudden autoimmune. It showed Sjogren's, and it
Oh,
showed actually a really scary one, autoimmune hepatitis, which is where your body attacks your liver.
oh my
So that
goodness.
kind of really scared me. And I talked to the gastroenterologist, and he says, you don't have that. Your liver enzymes are normal. So that was relief. But the Sjogren's was still there. The fatigue was phenomenal. The brain fog was overwhelming. So I go to a rheumatologist, and they finally said, you never get one, just one autoimmune. You'll get two, three, four. So she decided I had, between the testing and just life, I had chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and Sjogren's.
Oh, so you
Sjogren's.
had more symptoms than the typical Sjogren's patient?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Uh-huh.
didn't even
Yeah.
have typical Sjogren's.
Oh,
The
okay.
eyesight, she said, "Do you have dry eyes?" And I said, "No." But then I talked about how blurry they were in the morning. She goes, "That's dry eye." I said, "Look, lady, I've never had this stuff. I don't know what it was. I thought it was just goop in the
Blurry.
morning. I
Yeah.
didn't know it
Yeah.
was, my eyes were so dry. Mouth. So now I carry water with me everywhere. I do little things that have helped.
Yes.
Um, for females, it goes everywhere, from vaginal dryness to eyes to mouth to flaky skin, dry skin. I did not have, it doesn't seem to have impacted my organs, but I just
Uh-huh.
had a dentist tell me that because my mouth is not as moist, you can get more cavities,
Oh boy. Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
not
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't realize that. So I'm tooting along at 2000, that's 2018. And then in the stress, by the way, I did not continue on the school board. So that
Good.
helped tremendously. That
Yes.
flattened out a lot.
That was a good
In
idea. Yeah.
2020 comes along, and of course, we all heard of COVID. So I'm working in an urgent care, and we're seeing no patients. People are too scared to come out. So we're going to lose our business. So the
Hmm.
doctor honestly was smart and quickly jumped on a COVID rapid test that was a finger stick. And he was the only one in our air in Florida, I believe, at that time that had this. So I go from seeing no patients. Well, before COVID, we'd see 50 a day to 70 in 16 hours. And I worked usually 8 to 10 of those to 12. Now all of a sudden we're seeing 300 a day.
Oh boy.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was just ridiculous. We're coming up with systems because people are now getting in fights in the parking lot because somebody bumped a line or whatever. It was just chaos that was unbelievable. But I'm not seeing any sick people. They're all, I'd have a family of four. One would have it, three wouldn't, no symptoms. But
Mm-hmm.
everybody's scared, they want to know.
Right,
So
right.
they're all panicking.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm kind of, at this point, I had one sick man in the whole time, and
Huh.
he very ill. And I sent him, he promised me, he wouldn't let me call the ambulance, but he promised me to go straight to the hospital. I had to use an interpreter, everything. So I get him, check on him. He did go to the hospital, thank God. So I'm like kind of really diminishing this. I'm thinking it's no big deal. So
Right.
I go get tested the day before I'm flying to Ohio. My 80-plus-year-old aunt needs a ride. So I'm going to fly to Ohio, fly her back, drive her back to Florida so she can be now seasonal. She's recently widowed. So I'm being the good niece. So we have a little house party. We start with mask, but you got to eat. We're eating all this stuff. Little did I know one of the cousins had symptoms of a what she thought was a reaction to a flu shot, but it wasn't at all, obviously. So within my aunt starts coughing and I start a little dry cough. And then all of a sudden I'm like, why are you coughing? She goes, oh, allergies. And I thought, well, it could be that. I'm not used to Ohio stuff. So I keep going. And then by the fourth day, we're in a hotel on the way home and I have a fever. Don't know how high it is. I don't have a thermometer, but if I guessed, well over 100,
Oh,
because I was hot as a pepper, as they used to say. Well, I feel like garbage. So we go to somewhere, I buy some ibuprofen, and I felt a little bit better. Got her to Florida. Was supposed to spend some time with my parents, but they're aging and unhealthy. So I stayed outside. I stayed 10 feet away and
yeah.
said, something's going on. Don't know what's happening. Well, within 2 days, I get the notice that one of us had COVID. And so I thought, I don't feel good. And I thought, keep walking, keep walking. Don't get pneumonia. Whatever you do, just keep walking, because I kept walking for fitness. I kept doing what I knew to do. And I kept feeling worse and worse. And my walking was much slower. And so I go to my urgent care and I say, could we test me? I got exposed. I didn't know it. They do a chest x-ray that my cough makes them nervous. So we do, I have the cracked glass. I have
Oh my
the bag.
goodness.
I
Really?
have
That quickly?
double pneumonia. So
Oh,
she's deciding how to treat me quickly and send me home, which was fine at this point. But I had a pulse ox at home and I started dropping into the 80s. So I let my doctor know, and he calls me and he goes, those people die. He wouldn't say you could die. He says, those people die. You got to get to the hospital. So I call the hospital. They said, don't come here. Well, then I say, my SAT's in the 80s. You got to come here. So I said, I agree, but I want to give you a heads up. I'm walking in positive. I don't know if you have a policy or a plan. So she does this, real fast, kind of get away from me, because I said way back, I've got COVID and I've got pneumonia. My oxygen's dropping. I'm supposed to come here. She puts me in an isolated room, which was perfect. Then they think they got to get me to an exam room. Well, this hospital's new. It's bright and shiny, pretty. So she decides to take me outside, to an external door, so I won't have to go through the ER, which is smart. So what she didn't know, though, was it's still 90 degrees in Florida in October, or 80 some, and I'm already struggling. So when she walked me this far, I was progressively getting worse and worse. By the time I got to the door, I'm doubled over and I can't breathe. I'm squeaking. I'm just.
wow. Wow.
So she gets me, she can't get the door. She's getting nervous. Finally gets me in the room. First thing, the provider walks in and says, oh, get a mask. I can't breathe. In between breaths, I had to take a word, take a breath, word, take a breath. So she goes, oh, you need oxygen. I said, you think? So the next 3 weeks, I'm in ICU, most of it. The last 2 days, they got me out. They called a respiratory code on me at one point, because I, in my infinite wisdom, thought my muscles are wasting. I could see my legs getting weird and thin and floppy. And so I thought, I'll just walk around the bed so that I can get a little stronger. I have the oxygen on. But no. All of a sudden they're like, Mrs. Johnson, are you okay? And I'm like, in between, I don't feel so good. And all of a sudden they're screaming, they're running, they're all around me. But until that moment, this was 18 days in, 17 days in, nobody had touched me except to administer shots. Every night I got a shot to stop the bleeding. I mean, to stop the clotting. And so this nurse's aide stands beside me and rubs my shoulder and says, it's going to be okay. Because nobody could come visit me. Nobody could come in.
Right.
Everybody
Yeah.
looks like a space alien when they come in. So the respiratory therapist is getting dressed at the door, screaming, you're going to harm her, because of the mask they chose. But they said, no, her oxygen's getting better. I mean, it's just, they were arguing over me, trying to figure out how to save me quickly. And they did. I did not have to be intubated. Thank goodness. That was a big fear, because
Yeah.
people died once they got intubated. I had lost a friend. So it was just hard. And finally around the third week, they say, somebody comes in, they said, we recognize your medical. Are you sick of this place? I said, oh yeah. They said, would you go home on oxygen? Oh yeah. Anything to go home.
Mhm.
And they did a walk test. I failed within 5 seconds. My oxygen dropped so low without the oxygen. So I came home. There was days I'd have to turn that oxygen way up to get through. I'd take a shower with my oxygen. My husband would stand outside and keep asking every 10 seconds, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm okay.
Wow.
It was just that intense. I broke 2 ribs in the hospital. I didn't realize I did that. I was coughing so hard that
Ugh.
they would hear what I said something about my coughing. I said, I'm so sorry. Am I keeping people awake? That way, it was more like that for me. And she goes, oh no. She goes, we just feel so bad for you because we can hear it throughout the whole floor because it was just that intense.
Good Lord.
And
Wow.
a funny story to lighten the moment is I hated using that bedside potty because I just felt like I was putting people to work and then the smell. I was worried about the smell. I can't smell. It's COVID. I can't smell. So, but I know what it smells like when you go number 2. So I say to her, I'm so sorry it stinks. She goes, oh, honey, we can't smell a thing with these N95, whatever. And I said, oh, good, just kind of relief. But one day they walk in and I had used Tiger Balm for my ribs, just trying to help it, rub it on. And she said, oh, what did you put on? I can smell that. And I said, Tiger Balm. I said, you've been lying to me about the poop. I was just like, you can't smell it.
Oh, right.
It was just so funny. And at
Yeah.
that point, I was a whole food eater. That's all I ate was fruits and vegetables. I didn't, and grains. I just did not eat any meats. I had been that way for years. I felt like that was the cleanest diet you could eat. And I had to educate the dietitians of how to cook, to prepare for me. Because they would because I would say, just throw some beans on some rice. I'll be good, in a salad, a nice sized salad, and I'll be happy. And one guy threw green beans. One of the aides threw some green beans and some rice. So I was like, they're going to starve me now. Because by the 2.5 weeks, I started to get hungry. I wasn't, the first 2 weeks, it was an effort to eat. I just couldn't. I'd take a bite, I'd lift the mask, take a bite, put it back down real fast. So it was just hysterical. Some of the stories, the things that I went through. And I bought the nurses pizza like 3 times, 2 or 3 times in that time frame because they'll be nicer. They'll be more responsive if they that you appreciate them. So I was showing gratitude. I'm sure they were sick of pizza because there was several businesses that bought us pizza at the urgent care to thank us throughout time. And it was just like by the end, it was like, if I see another piece of pizza, I will just, ugh. But I had already given up gluten. I had given up dairy years before. So when I go along, then I talked to this functional medicine doctor. What happens is for 2 years, I sat there, oxygen 24 hours a day, they kept checking me. They kept doing CT scans. My breathing tests weren't great. If
How
it
did
got
how did
hot,
how did your lungs
my
look?
heart, well, when they look at it, there was tons of um, that increased markings is the way they would describe
Okay.
it. I had scar tissue now
Scar tissue.
from the pneumonia.
Okay.
The pneumonia, actually, I asked 2.5 weeks in, I said, shouldn't you do another x-ray? Or 2 weeks in, and they did it and it was worse. It was just that kind of things you would learn. And he says, I knew it would be worse. I said, you couldn't tell me this? Use your words. So we were both, the doctors they didn't communicate super well because
Uh-huh.
they wanted me to take Lasix, which is a water shot to take the water off. And I'm like, do they know I have Sjogren's? That I'm dry as a bone already? Look at my ankles. I have nothing extra. And I said, can I refuse this till I have a conversation with them tomorrow morning? She goes, absolutely. We'll hold it. So we have this conversation and he goes, I read in in Europe, they're giving this and it seems to help the COVID. I said, please give it to me. I said, could you give it to me orally so I don't wet myself? Because those IV ones are rough. And he says, you're in the ICU. I said, okay, could I do one IV and then the rest oral? He goes, yeah. It was that negotiation of me trying not to be too bossy, but to at least ask and advocate for myself and say, hey. So I'm going along 2.5 years later, and I see this doctor that says something about online on Facebook, and he says is Vitality Health and or something like that, Vital Health, or so I pay to talk to him for an hour, for 30 minutes or an hour, whatever it was, because I wanted more details, because he's saying I can help you in all these arenas on his videos. So I thought I want to talk to him. So I pay and I talk to him, and he says, well, we have two problems. One is I have never helped somebody with autoimmune on a vegan or vegetarian diet. I've never been able to recover them fully. And I
Okay.
said,
Okay.
really? And then money, of course, was the other. We went from me being a 6-figure income to poverty levels quickly, because my husband works, but he just didn't have as good a job as I did. So I knew that I did file for disability after 6 months of not having any improvement. And finally, 2.5 years in, I got it, or 2 years, whatever it was. It was a little over 2 years.
What
They don't care. Go ahead. I was going to
what
say they don't care
what is your
financial
function?
aspect.
2.5 years later, what's your functionality?
2.5 years later, I still can't bend over and breathe. I would get short of breath. If people talk to me for too long, it just wore me out. I took naps still 2 and 3 and 4 times a day. And I just, my brain fog was just, I couldn't, I tried to work with this doctor to see if I could do it, like online. I couldn't even remember doses I had given for decades.
Oh,
And I just couldn't I couldn't read anymore, because if I read, I couldn't understand it. I couldn't comprehend it. I could
right.
sit there and read a paragraph. I didn't lose my ability to read. I just couldn't comprehend it or retain it. So I
Mhm.
couldn't go study quickly, because if I walked out, I forget what I read pretty quick. So it was just crazy. Things that I had done my whole life, since I was 18 years old, and I'm 56 now, and this has been going on for 3.5 years. So things I had done my whole medical career were no longer, I couldn't access it. I couldn't do it. And people would ask me, everybody always took advantage of my brain, which was great. I didn't get upset. But now they'd ask me something and I'd look at them blankly. And I was like, I don't know anymore. And I said, I'm sure they've come out with new stuff since I practiced. And I would just do it that way, couch it that way, try to say, oh, there's probably newer things now. But
Are
about,
you are you
go ahead.
working at all?
No, I still cannot
Oh, still
work
can't work.
quite.
Okay.
But I am so much, I'm hoping that not necessarily, I won't go back into that. I'm hoping to actually coach others to get through this.
Hmm.
Lori's working to do that. So I'm going along, and he says all these things. The second problem was the finances. He was very, very costly for me at that time. Is he worth it? Probably. I didn't know. I didn't get to do it. But the thing he said was AIP, autoimmune protocol. And I had never heard of that in all my years of medicine, that there was special diets for people with autoimmune. So I go researching, and I thought, I gagged the first few times of meat. And my mom, who loves meat, says to me, Melody, just do like a ground meat in a soup to start with. I said, okay. And then I could do it. And then slowly I built up to chewing meat and all that stuff. Sounds weird, but it was just my lifestyle.
Hmm. Sure,
So
sure.
now, now I love bacon. But
Oh,
I buy the good stuff, the nitrate
that's
free and all
quite the
that. But
transition. Yes.
but now I like it. And the smell is like okay with me. But first it was just such a transition. But then I do the AIP, and for 6 months, oh, by the way, I did lose 50, 60 pounds in the hospital. I was that ill. And then I get out. So I hire a dietitian, and by the 2.5 years later, I gained all of that back. And I was eating plants. It made no sense to me. I was barely, anyway. I hired this dietitian for AIP that knows what she's doing. And she teaches me. I'm still not losing 6 months later, but my pain is dramatically less. My joint swelling is less. I'm seeing some improvements. So I'm happy. But I know there's more because I'm still on my oxygen 12 to 14, 16 hours a day. If I had a bad day, it was all 24 hours.
Wow.
So I always took it at night because I dropped so drastically, they said at night. COVID can cause sleep apnea. So
Oh.
can body type.
Hmm.
And so, but before COVID, I never had sleep issues. After COVID, it was that wired and tired that you've probably heard described, just crazy. You couldn't fall asleep, or if you fell asleep, you're awake an hour later, and then you're not asleep for 24 hours. I mean, it's just, and you cry. I mean, I cried. I hated it. It controlled every aspect. And then when you're tired, you're not healing. So it was just this vicious circle, vicious. So I come along this thing that says long COVID's ME/CFS long COVID summit. I didn't know what ME/CFS meant. I had chronic fatigue, but I didn't know it was abbreviated. I mean, I didn't know that's it was commonly abbreviated. ME, I had no clue that that's what it really was. The myoencephalitis, encephalitis, or whatever. So Lorrie does a summit and she interviews people. Her name is Lorrie Rivers, and she interviews people and all these doctors, all these experts. And these are people that actually know something. My cardiologist is blaming my 140 heart rate on my lungs. My lung doctor's saying, I think it's your heart. And nobody's fixing anything.
Mm.
You know, beta blockers, everything. My heart would just jump when it felt like it. I'd get pale, break out into a sweat, and my husband would say, what's your heart rate? I'd look down, I'm sitting there 130. So it just made no sense. Made no sense. So here I am 2.5 years later. Nobody's fixed me. I'm improving, but nobody's helped me. So I do the AIP dietitian. Then Lorrie comes along, the opportunity, because I start buying what these doctors are talking about, but I'm thinking, this is overwhelming.
Yeah.
My brain doesn't work right. I couldn't even watch a full hour of video. So I'd have to stop. So I bought the little program or the $50 and did that. It's best money I ever spent because then I could listen to them at my pace. And then all of a sudden I thought, I need help. I can't do this. And the doctors aren't. So all of a sudden she said, every chronic disease has a hidden infection.
Right.
I thought,
Right.
okay, I have something hidden inside of me. And it made sense. So we started, she changed my diet right away to a modified keto. It's
So
even
how is
stricter.
how is that different from the autoimmune diet?
Well, the AIP lets you have fruit. The AIP will let you
Oh,
have plantains, higher carbs. Keto takes away any sugar. Opportunities are very minimal for the inside infection to
okay.
eat on and feast on. So the keto, and then she added and took away dairy, and so no dairy with that either, or fruit,
Right. Right.
and limited carbs, very limited. So she taught me how to figure that out. I mean, all these things that I had poo-pooed a lot of my life because medicine doesn't dig into nutrition ever. So within 4 days, I had the gift of seeing a worm in my bowel movement. He was a baby, but he was
It's just
there.
it's amazing.
And then
So the what I mean, what is going on here? The worms are feeding
they are
off
actually
the carbs
they
and
sponge
they're
in
like
it. They that feeds them. They love sugar. They
love sugar.
love sugar.
Okay. Okay.
So, but they're a sponge for toxins. So they're actually retaining that stuff, the toxins, to keep us impaired. And my toxins may have been acquired outside my body, but the worm brought it into my body. So,
You
and
know,
I
well, I
found
mean,
out,
do
go
you know
ahead.
why they're leaving? You know, is the
I do
environment is
know
not
why they're leaving
hospitable?
now. It's less hospitable. They hate that. But I'm also on a product called Cellcore. And
Cellcore, yes, yes.
Lorrie found them and was so impressed. And we laugh about this. She made it public, or I wouldn't tell her business, but she had a 28-inch worm. And I gotta admit, I had a little worm envy. Gosh, how is that tiny little thing getting all these big worms out? And I know that there's stuff inside of me because I still have symptoms. And started Cellcore. At first, I did prescription meds I ordered from another country. She taught us how to do that if we chose to do that, and I did. But boy, they
Prescription
can damage
meds to treat
prescription strength to get rid of the
parasites,
worms.
get rid of the
Yeah, the
worms.
parasites,
Okay. Okay.
worms and parasites.
And so
And
you did the diet and then the worms show up, or did you do the diet plus the cell core and then they
the
showed up?
diet did show up. The diet initially, in 4 days of getting rid of the sugar, they started coming out,
Wow. So
but not
does she
the big
say
ones,
yes?
not the real ones, the ones that had stayed for decades. Did you know a worm can live inside of you for up to 60 years? I didn't know that
Yeah, I
till
didn't
just
really need to know
recently.
that. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
it's gross.
Um,
So
so
it's gross.
isn't so did she say, okay, start checking your poop, check your poop and see if
Yes,
is
she
that what you
actually
were doing?
wanted me to put a strainer in my toilet, but that really grossed me out because I'm medical and I've played in poop 40 years, but I never really played in poop like that.
Yeah.
So I was just using it, found something that was disposable that would catch it, and then I could see the separation. And then I decided
Oh,
I was tired of
interesting.
that. Now we joke about it, but it's plastic fork. You just stick it in there and you pull them out to look at them and see out of curiosity.
Ah,
So my friend says, I can't believe you do that. And I said, well, I'm paying somebody money to teach me. And she said to do it. So I'm doing
there you go.
it. Period. I'm pretty committed to doing what will help me. Well, anyway, just recently, probably in the last month and a half, I really didn't feel good. My stomach had a sense of unease and I had I pull and I thought, oh my gosh. So I run and get the tape measure. And I had a 38-inch worm. And it was shocking to me. Shocking.
38-inch
There was,
worm.
yeah, and who knows if he broke off. It could have been longer. I don't know. But what I do know is by figuring this out, it validated my symptoms. It
Right.
made me not think all this was in my head.
Okay.
It,
Okay.
so many times I was unique because I knew what to order to find my autoimmune. But the average person has to go to 8 to 12 doctors to get them to finally order
Yeah.
something and figure out what's going on inside their body because they look okay on the outside. Well, in 2018, I adjusted my working schedule every other day because I couldn't work every day. It was just too hard. It hurt too much. My body, I could barely walk after the shift. I joked, I told my husband it felt like I walked on peg legs. It was just the weirdest thing because
So
my feet hurt.
yeah, I mean, uh, if you look back, you were kind of set up for your body really to
I
not be
was.
able to
So
handle
what
COVID.
happened,
Yeah.
Lori explained it beautifully, is I had termite damage in my structure and I
Huh?
didn't know that the termites were feasting. And then all of a sudden, this tsunami called COVID came along and it just wiped out everything.
Yeah.
Just wiped out the whole building because I just couldn't get past it. So until then, I had functioned.
Yeah.
I'd made my life and it was okay. It was hard, but it was okay. But then all of a sudden, COVID brought out everything.
Yeah.
And what I can really be grateful for now after COVID, by the way, within 3 months, I was off my oxygen in the daytime,
Oh,
100% off. And I
on the
was
diet
using
and
it.
the new and cell core?
Yes, within 3 to 4 months. And then within 6 months, I was reading. I'm reading again. I'm passionately reading. I'm reading 3 and 4 books at a time again. I had to start, I did have a tremor, a pretty obvious tremor where I was shaking. So I started paint by numbers. I just thought of it one day and I thought, oh, that's a good idea. And so because I had to get in the lines and I had to really focus, and my tremor left eventually.
Oh,
And a little messier in the beginning if you go back and look. But now it's a little more tidy. I still do it because I like it now. I recently, what I like about COVID and I'm grateful for with COVID was it stopped me in my tracks and it made me reevaluate my life.
Mm-hmm.
So now my my world is much slower paced. I rest every morning still. We call it lovingly a meditation. 30 minutes in a dark room, not on my phone, but I might do music, and I usually do. I don't
Okay.
tend to sleep anymore like I used to, but it's radical rest. It's letting my body continue the rest of the day
Okay.
or until the next
And
meditation.
how you do that twice a day, you said?
Yeah. I'm not
Okay.
good at the second one anymore now that I'm feeling better, but I'm really committed to that first one. And
Yeah,
then I
yeah.
noticed um, I couldn't carry a laundry basket for 3 years, and now I can carry a laundry basket with clothes to the washer. It's huge. I mean, my husband and my sons had to do everything, extra. They, grocery everything. I used to have to take my oxygen with me, my portable, and to shop just to get me out. He would take me, to go places, and I can remember when I first got it, I only had the green tank that you see in the hospitals, and he actually had to actually drag the tank. I didn't have the strength to drag it, and would drag it so I could go places and hold on to the cart and just stuff like that. And now, shoot, I'm doing laundry. Not that I'm excited about that, but it slowed me down. That I now have like a schedule, if you will. In the morning, I'm reading, and
Uh-huh.
I'm praying, and I'm doing things that I hadn't given myself always time for before. Just recently, I signed up for a beginner sewing class, quilting class. And I kind of pictured the 1800s where you sit around the loop. No, I'm on a machine and I'm learning to sew. It's so cool. I enjoy it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, First, I'm learning to give myself grace because for my whole life, I've said I'm not artsy fartsy, but I actually am. And I'm learning it's okay if it's not perfect. I was a perfectionist. So this has taught me not to give myself grace and mercy, just to kind of laugh and go on, if you don't get it. The rheumatologist, I had a cardiologist, a pulmonologist, a rheumatologist. I had a physical therapy. Um, he wanted me to do pulmonary therapy, but I couldn't afford it, those kind of things.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I've just noticed that, and I did it myself. I found breathing tests and breathing people that would help me learn to breathe. But my last appointment with my rheumatologist, I'll share this. He's amazing brain. He's very intelligent. He would talk about meds that I could not take because of my heart. I mean, he just knew them. He's just going. But the last appointment, I'm going every 6 months because I'm on a medicine that can make me go blind. And it's not helping. I'm still having pain. I'm having a 7 out of 10.
Mm,
I'm just some days it felt like an 11 out of 10. And I
mm.
tell him I'm hurting so much. Never used anything big for pain. I didn't want anything big. I wanted fixed. That's all I wanted. Because
Mhm.
big pills just make me sleepy. They never helped me. I've had morphine for surgery and it never did anything but make me sleep. So I wouldn't complain. It didn't help the pain. I just wake up in pain.
Mhm.
So I just wanted fixed. And he made me wait 2.5 hours. And then he comes in, apologizes, which I appreciate. I understand things happen. Um, but I'm exhausted. I'm near tears because I'm hurting because I'm sitting up all this time. And he types a little bit, we talk a little bit, socialize a little bit. Then I tell him I'm uncomfortable, but because I don't look uncomfortable, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if he didn't believe me. I don't know what happened. He says, okay, I'll see you back in 6 months. So I walk
Mm.
out, held the tears in until I got to the door. And then I lost it in the car and I thought, I have to figure this out. And
Right.
that's what I would encourage anybody listening is don't give up. Keep looking until you find what works for you. Don't just listen to these doctors because they are limited in how they've been trained.
Right.
It's not that they're doing mean or bad things or trying to make your money. It's just they're limited. Somebody just said recently, oh, they like the chronic stuff. I said, actually, I didn't. It drove me crazy because I didn't know what to do. And what do you say every visit when you have nothing to offer?
Mhm.
And they said, well, you're one of the few ones. I don't, this was at a store recently, somehow I got in a conversation. I said, I don't know if I am, because they want an answer. I'm telling you, as a human, you want to help people.
Right, right.
Normal
Of
humans.
course, of
They want to
course.
help people.
Yes.
And so to say that they're just out for the money, I wouldn't agree, because they're working harder and harder to get what they're getting.
Yeah.
And they're frustrated too. But I will tell them. So what happened was I scheduled my next appointment. I let him know that I quit taking his medicine the day after I left. I said, you don't know this, but I said, I cried when I left here. I was very frustrated by what you didn't do. And it's a hard conversation to have when you confront them, but I was
Right.
very polite. I said, you were one of the most intelligent doctors I've been around.
Mhm.
Build them up a little. I said, but I have to tell you, there's more to medicine than what you're doing.
Okay.
And I hope you keep an open mind when patients come in. Because when I walked out of here, I was on 13 prescriptions and I said, now I'm on 0.
Uh-huh.
I weaned myself from everything. I decided nothing was helping. It just had side effects.
Yep, yep.
And I was done. And I said, and I found somebody that had actually been in my situation to a certain degree. And I said, and with her help, her empowerment, her education, I've been able to get off of everything and to treat myself. And I talked to him about parasites. Now, the eye doctor, when I talked to him, because now I don't have to go every 6 months, because I'm off that medicine, he goes, oh, there is a reason I did eye medicine and not this. He was pretty grossed out. We laughed, because he says, oh, I want to stick with eyeballs. I don't want to do that parasite stuff. And then we laughed. But I said, the reason I'm telling this story is I want you to remember this. If you have a patient that needs help, you're going to remember me, and I'm going to get them where they need to be. He goes, thank you.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah,
So when
yeah. The
when
pulmonologist. Go ahead.
when did you so the big change came with Lori's program. You had if I'm getting this right, you had some some success with the autoimmune diet. But the
Yes, I did.
big change for you came with Lori's program. When did you start Lori's program?
Now I started it, I believe, in July last year. And then within 3 months, like I said, I'm off the O2. I'm doing all this. I'm getting more energy. I'm able to walk further. I'm able to do more. But within 6 months was the dramatic, like, oh my gosh, no O2, the O2's gone, but the heart rate quit doing its crazy stuff. I got off the beta blockers. I got off all the meds trying to fix it. That wasn't fixing it. It was just band-aiding it or trying to control it, and it wasn't. So
So
I would
this
say
is
with it's
within six
this is
months. This is
yeah.
like a slow progress. That's what she says, I think. That this is
Well, she
it's
tells,
slowly.
we talked about this. People can't come in there and expect to do what I did, because it may not work as fast. It may not be that 3 to 6 months. It could be a year.
Mhm.
It could be longer. You didn't get sick overnight with autoimmune or chronic inflammation. So it takes some time, but it can be done, and you just have to keep fighting. What was interesting is my whole life, adult life, my obsessed about food obsession, losing weight, feeling good, all this stuff, and trying everything I knew how to do. Well, with Lori putting me on the modified keto, all the food talk in my brain drastically stopped.
Ah,
It stopped
interesting.
being so crazy head
Hmm.
obsessing, because I knew that this is what I could eat and this is what would help me heal. And I shifted my thinking to don't worry about what happens. Start worrying about your healing, not worry, but thinking about this is going to heal you. So I shifted to heal, stopped obsessing. I have lost a little over 50 pounds. Um, Incidentally, I do not get on a scale obsessively like I used to. I don't try to control everything around me. I quit playing the games and decided that I want to live. And that's what I just had a good friend I had a good conversation with. And I said to her, it sounds like you kind of give up on life, because she's super obese and she can't take care of herself anymore because of that. And I gave her the opportunity to come live in my home. And for a year, we would take care of her. My husband and I, we talked about it, and we would help her. But I said, you can't come to my house to die. You have to come to live. I mean, she's my age, 56, and she's already looking at, nursing homes.
Right, right.
So I was like, you have to come to live. And that's what, I didn't say this, but in the very first night, there was only 2 people with COVID in the hospital when I got admitted. We were told on the news that it was packed out, over capacity, but we had 2 of us. Well, they did call it code blue on that night, or the second night, I think it was. And I just knew in my heart it was her, the other person. I didn't even know it was a girl, a female. So I started praying, and for her in my head. And then all of a sudden I said, I will live and not die. And from that moment on, I realized I want to live. And then the next question anybody should say was, how do I want to live? Well, I didn't want to live the rest of my life on the couch with oxygen, barely able to function. So I have fought my way back step by step. And I've told Lorrie, I feel like I went backwards. She goes, no, let's reframe this, because your words are so powerful.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
found a way of helping me, or was part of the healing process. So it was just phenomenal, just phenomenal. She has I tell her all the time how much I appreciate her. And because when you work with someone with brain fog, you talk to them for very long, they remember maybe 11%. So there's a lot of things that have to be repeated. And she is so gracious with that, with all of us, to just not lose patience, not, she's healthy now. So now I see myself much more patient than I've ever been with people, because I've experienced it. And I want to love them where they're at. I want to take care of them where they're at.
Nice, nice. Um,
Yeah.
so we just did on Health Rising, we just did a blog on somebody who recovered using EFT. And I
Yeah.
know Laura uses that. Did you try that, and how did that go?
I had actually heard of it before and used it briefly, but I didn't stick with it. So with Lorrie now, I stick with it. I do notice, I can't say I have this dramatic shift, but I may have these, I do notice shifts every time we do it, or I do it. I'm
Okay.
learning to do it on myself. When you're a perfectionist, you sit there and think you have to do it just right. And she's
Hmm.
teaching us you don't have to do it a certain way. You just do what you know to do. You say out loud what you're feeling through all of it, and then you start shifting your thinking throughout it. And it's awesome. It really is helpful. The ARC you and I talked about, ARC, in the US, it's a little microcurrent machine. I should have had it sitting here so I could just show you. It's about this big. I wrap it above my ankle. I can still walk with it on, and it Velcros on. Has 2 little things that you put a little goop on it, gel, and that connects it, and it goes throughout your system, making sure your blood flow, you're healing your mitochondria, you're really working. In the US, it's only for horses because it just costs so much to get the FDA to approve things. But in Europe, they use this for humans. So I went researching it. I put it on. It automatically tells me, that it's on. It turns itself off and beeps when it's done, and 3 hours later, and I just take it off, wipe it off, and go on with life. But I noticed I slept better. And then recently I've noticed grounding. I cannot do grounding outside. We lovingly say we have weeds, not good grass. And I live in Florida where it's mostly sand. So
Okay.
my goal is to create a space for grounding with good soil and bring it in and all that stuff. But I haven't done that yet. And so I have the mat, the grounding mat.
Hmm.
And at
Hmm.
first I just did it for 10 minutes, and she's always slow, go low and slow, don't rush things. So I
Hmm.
did it for 10 minutes, myself up to an hour, and then worked myself up to a couple hours. Didn't see anything bad. So then I just put it at the end of my bed, under my sheet, So now I lay on it all night long and I am sleeping almost an hour more every night.
Oh,
I'm
that's
just
nice.
impressed,
That would be
so
nice.
impressed.
That'd be very nice.
And then I'm gonna try it. It's like less than 30 bucks on Amazon. It's not expensive.
Is that
But
right?
you do have to
Okay.
put it in, you have to plug it into the ground of your outlet, your plug.
Okay.
So for me, that was just one of the best, cheapest things. Methylene blue, when I was in school, that was a dye you put on slides. But I started taking it at the
Hmm.
advice of one of the doctors. And I think that helped me get off the oxygen. I think that was part of it.
Oh,
And so I took it for like 4 or 5, 6 months. Lori goes, take a break, see if you notice anything. All of a sudden I'm sluggish again. And
oh,
I
isn't
thought,
that
"Oh,
something?
maybe I can do a little more with energy." So I put myself back on it. I'm one of the ones though, because I was medical, I got a syringe and I squirted it in a capsule because that stuff tastes nasty. And I just take it by capsule real fast.
Okay.
Um, yeah, people's Lori's like, oh, I just put it in a real small amount and stick the straw in the back and suck it up real quick. And I'm like, nope, can't even do that. It's disgusting. She's tougher than I am and that stuff. And then something else, I do vagal nerve stimulation with
Oh,
a clip and a tent unit. So if somebody wanted to learn about that, there is a actual Facebook group with Dawn. I can't think of her last name, but it's called Vagal Nerve Stimulation.
uh-huh.
And Dawn is the moderator. And she talked about how it saved her life to keep going. And they teach you exactly which TENS unit to buy if you don't want to buy the real machines can cost up to $2,000
Right, right, right.
there. And so I had a TENS unit and I worked with it and bought an ear clip. And I do it every day still. I sit there and when I'm doing my devotional, I sit there and I do my vagal nerve for a half hour. Well, I just kind of multitask, if you will. And red light therapy is another big thing we use.
Uh-huh.
And I have red light for my mouth because of the
Hmm.
dentist. He didn't tell me to do it, but he scared me enough that I did it. So it keeps your gums healthy. And then I also have a red light belt that I put over my liver after the methylene blue about a half hour later. And then infrared sauna I use.
Okay,
Not
okay.
faithful, not in the summer so good, but in the winter I'm better about it because it's cold. And I'll jump in there just to warm up. But it's such a good detoxer, such a good
Yeah. Oh,
detoxer.
yeah, yeah.
And we had to buy the portable sauna. We were thinking we'd get the big cabinet one eventually, but I was scared I couldn't breathe in it. So we bought the one that comes from here down,
Oh,
and I
right.
sit on it. Yeah,
Oh, nice,
I
nice.
yeah, I didn't want to suffocate or feel like I was suffocating since I was acting up still at that point. And Lori goes, "Want to have some fun?" And she goes, "We can. You're tough, so let's do the sauna." And I'm thinking, okay. And then we do. What else have I done? I've tried so many things through this process, but she's been the best resource for me.
Sounds like she's on
She's
top of a lot of stuff. Okay,
oh,
so
she
are
is.
you so you've made tremendous progress and but there's still a ways to go. Are you still seeing progress bit by bit, or
Oh
where's your
yeah,
health now? Yeah, yeah.
definitely still seeing progress. Still no O2. Even getting treated at one point, I had gotten off and I had to get back on for a couple days. It was weird. I'm guessing one of the parasites did something,
Huh?
released something or did something when it died. Um, I'm not sure. And I had a lot of symptoms. There's something about treating. You have to do it in order. You can't just willy-nilly do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I love the fact that she knows the order. Now I do, but she knows the order and she's kept me on the right path because had it been me after I did the survey she gave us, I would have said, "Oh, let's treat the Lyme right now, right now." But the parasites are the Lyme carriers.
Uh-huh,
So if
uh-huh.
I can get rid of the parasites, I can probably get rid of the Lyme.
Wow.
And she said to me in 6, 9 months, let's talk about this. If you still have too many symptoms of the Lyme, then we'll think a little differently. But with the nice thing about the cell core is they do the thinking for you. And they're thinking at an electrical level as well as the order of things. And since they aligned with what Lori knew, That's why she liked them so. She said she never had these kind of results in her whole life. Like
And
these, this
cell core requires a physician,
a provider.
provider.
Somebody has to be a provider of it. And because one thing is you don't get to just call Cellcore and say, why am I having the symptom? That's not what they're about. They're about creating the product. So they're empowering the trainers or in their educating. So I've learned quite a bit about them and I'm very impressed.
Okay, very
Yay.
good, very good. Well, thank you, thank you so much uh,
Thank
for your
you.
for telling your story and all the things that you've been through, and and look at you now. It's really something. It's really something. And
I should have died. I should have died.
you were
I was
close.
asked.
You were close.
It was,
You
and
were
the
close.
medicines they gave, the only one they approved, remdesivir, is actually it killed 55% of the people in trial. But
Oh,
because of the politics behind it, that was the only thing. The way the doctor said it, I should have captured it, but I didn't because I was hypoxic. And he just said, "Well, it's the only thing we're allowed to give
well,
at
yeah,
this time." The
yeah,
way he
yeah.
said it, I go back and I find out that's exactly how my friend didn't die from COVID. He died from the kidney and liver failure of the remdesivir.
Oof.
With all my heart, I believe that. And I should have. I mean, if I think it through, it was bad. So that's why I look at life so differently now, and I'm so grateful. I now, even in the midst of the chaos of the finances and all that stuff, and the way I felt, and I still knew that I was alive, and I was grateful for that. So again, anybody listening, please, please don't give up. Fight for yourself. Find somebody. It may not be Lori, it may be somebody else, but find somebody that can help you and will listen to you. And it's worth it.
That's a great note to close on, because I know we do, after time, the resignation sets in and you just
It
think
does.
there's nothing out there, particularly if you've had this for a long time, and you just don't want to commit anymore. It's like there's like a wall
Huge
that's
weight.
saying no, you know. But so
Yeah.
it's good to hear, because your health has been in such terrible shape at times, and it's great to see. It's always great to see these kind of remarkable, I call them recovery stories.
We're always processing, but it's been a miracle, and I'm so grateful. And again, don't give up. Nobody give up because it's there. And I was ready. I never had depression in my life. I've always been a happy person, but I was ready to try antidepressants because they help pain. And but I didn't. I went back and forth, and they have some side effects, so I just didn't want to go there. But I just continued. Just continue looking, continue trying. Don't give up is my big message. And I hope I've given hope to somebody that they'll go further. They won't just stop and put that wall up as you talked about.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of just goes up on its own. So yeah,
No,
okay. Well, good. Thank you very much for that note of hope. And
thank
I'll certainly take it to heart as well. Okay.
Amen.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. You have a great day.
I will. I'll see if I can turn this recording off. It says it's